Spermidine is one of the current so-called anti-aging supplements. Spermidine is produced naturally in the body. It has a number of functions. Why is it called spermidine? Well, it turns out that the guy who I don't know how do I put it, discovered or put together the first microscope. He was a Dutch scientist named Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He was looking through his invention, the microscope, and he described what spermine crystals in human semen back in 1678. And then he detected spermidine in sperm. So that's where it got the name spermidine. Now, it turns out that spermidine is involved in very important processes in the body. As I said, it's sold as a supplement. I'll get to that a little later, but it's classified as a polyamine. These are substances that are produced in the body that are involved in a number of important processes in the body. Another polyamine is called putrescine. Putrescine is, it sounds like it's taken from the word putrid, which makes sense because the smell of a human body that's kind of entering decomposition, it emits a horrible odor, and that odor is caused by an increase of putrescine. Putrescine also gives the odor to feces, the typical odor that most people find disgusting. That comes from putrescine also. But we're not talking about putrescine, but strangely enough, putrescine as a polyamine also provides a couple of benefits in the body, a couple of important benefits. Polyamines are essential for growth and proliferation of mammalian cells and involved in biological mechanisms that include DNA replication, RNA transcription, protein synthesis, and other cellular processes that involve proliferation, differentiation, and programmed cell death, and also the formation of tumors. They're very important for the maintenance of health. Now, spermidine is an interesting compound. Like I say, it's popular among the so-called anti-aging crowd because of studies, first in animals, then in humans, that showed that if you provide spermidine in animals, some of the animals live up to 30% longer. And people that live a very long time, and I'm talking about, well, not very long, but they live extraordinarily longer lives. Let's say they make it to 100 over. In almost every case, these people show higher spermidine levels. And for these reasons, spermidine became an anti-aging compound. It's sold in supplement form, and usually the dose is anywhere from 1 to 10 milligrams. And the supplement forms are most often derived from wheat germ, which happens to be the richest natural source of spermidine. Now, spermidine, as I said, one of the most important and really most interesting attributes of spermidine is, you've heard that fasting, I'm sure you've heard, a lot of people watching this are familiar, that fasting, including intermittent fasting and longer term fasting, is alleged to provide a number of health benefits. In fact, some studies have compared the health benefits of fasting to that, as far as life extension, to that of calorie restriction, which involves reducing total calorie intake by about 30-35%. That's the only known way to extend lifespan in animals. There's not a lot of evidence that calorie restriction does the same in humans. However, they do know that if you engage in fasting, you get about 95% of the health benefits of calorie restriction. Now, why is spermidine so important? Because I skipped over something. One of the major benefits of fasting is that it induces a process called autophagy. Autophagy can be broadly described as a clearing out of cellular debris. In other words, old cells, stuff that, old cells that build up in the body interfering with normal function. The cells that no longer replicate are called senescent cells. They also call them zombie cells because they just sit there. They interfere with newly replication of cells, but more importantly, senescent cells release a number of inflammatory chemicals which cause systemic inflammation. Systemic inflammation is the cornerstone of many serious diseases related to aging, including cardiovascular disease, cancer, and brain disease, neurodegeneration like Alzheimer's disease. So autophagy is a very good thing up to a point, and I'll explain this in a second. But here's the key. Spermidine is actually what's responsible for the increased autophagy that occurs during fasting. In other words, when you fast, your body steps up spermidine production, and that is what kicks off autophagy in fasting, and that's probably the main health benefit of fasting. Now, besides that, spermidine also is involved in stabilizing DNA, which is the blueprint of the cells. DNA is another important aspect of aging, because as you get older, through various cell replications, DNA tends to suffer what they call errors. I don't want to get into too much technical detail, but as the cells replicate, the DNA becomes less efficient. Let's put it that way. So anything that can maintain DNA stability will actually help you live longer and also avoid diseases like cancer, which involves, again, problems with DNA mutations. The reason why people make it to 100 or more is that they're basically mutants. They're genetic freaks that have an upgraded DNA repair system that most people do not have. So most people, as they get older, their DNA gets worse and worse, and this is what increases a lot of the aging effects and eventually kills you. But if you make it to 100 or more, you have an increased DNA stabilization process. Now, spermidine in animals shows very potent DNA stability effects, and it also increases a process called apoptosis. Apoptosis is a self-destruction of worn out or damaged cells. You want that, and this is a protective device of the body, because the body, through the immune system, can detect abnormal cells that could turn into cancer. And what happens when they detect it is the cells undergo a program more or less built into the cells that induces apoptosis, which is self-destruction of the cell, and it prevents that cell from, let's say, turning into cancer or tumors. So spermidine has been shown in some studies to inhibit tumor cell proliferation, and it can suppress tumor cell growth. As I said, in the brain, spermidine helps protect against neurodegeneration and cognitive decline. Some studies say that spermidine may help prevent hair graying by stabilizing proteins that are important for the formation of the melanin pigment, which gives hair color. Spermidine is found naturally in semen, plants, and in the gastrointestinal lumen where it's produced. Some foods that are high in spermidine include cheddar cheese, mushrooms, and I said wheat germ is the best source. Again, most of the spermidine supplements on the market are made from wheat germ, and they usually average, again, 1 to 10 milligrams. 1 milligram, when you figure that the studies show that the people that are healthiest, who get the most benefit from spermidine, are from their food sources. They're ingesting up to 25 milligrams a day of spermidine, and it's hard to understand how taking a supplement, and by the way, these supplements are usually very expensive. It's hard to understand how taking a supplement that contains only 1 milligram of spermidine is going to do anything. The average daily intake of spermidine in Europe is 10 to 15 milligrams. So, but there's other problems with spermidine supplements. As I wrote in my Applied Metabolics publication, I came across a study where they actually measured or analyzed the effect of oral spermidine supplements that were actually given in a high dose. They wanted to see what this stuff actually does. I mean, you have all these animal studies, you have the examples of people who live longer and all that, but they wanted to see if a person consumes a spermidine supplement, what is it going to do? Well, what they found was that all the spermidine that was ingested in supplement form was turned into another substance called spermine. Spermine is a larger molecule than spermidine. They don't know what spermine does. It may offer some benefits, but it doesn't seem to offer the same benefits as spermidine. So that made the use of spermidine supplements highly questionable. But even more important than that was the fact that a recent study showed that spermidine seems to increase the risk of, well, higher dose spermidine seems to increase the risk of type 2 diabetes. Now, what's interesting about that is that animal studies show that spermidine actually increases insulin sensitivity. Increasing sensitivity should actually prevent diabetes. So why would taking a higher dose spermidine supplement promote type 2 diabetes? And by the way, in the same study, putrescine, which is also a polyamine, prevented diabetes, and yet high dose spermidine seemed to promote type 2 diabetes. What could be the mechanism? Well, interestingly enough, it turns out the mechanism was the very feature of spermidine, the thing that people hype it for, which is promoting autophagy. It turns out that autophagy works with a U-shaped curve, or it follows the principle of hormesis, meaning a small amount is good for you. When you take a larger amount, it works in reverse and becomes toxic. Well, it turns out that larger doses of spermidine stimulate autophagy to an unusually higher extent, where it starts to cause damage, particularly to the beta cells of the pancreas that produce insulin. In other words, ingesting higher doses of spermidine can actually promote too much autophagy, which damages the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin, and that's where you can get the increased risk of type 2 diabetes. So let's add this all up. I mean, as I said, if you look at the medical literature, as I did, on spermidine, you come away very confused. And the reason for that is because a lot of the studies show all these benefits look at, for example, the benefit of spermidine on the heart, or protection against cardiovascular disease. It reduces cardiac hypertrophy, or excessive enlargement of the heart. It preserves the diastolic function of the heart, or the pumping ability of the heart. It improves cardiac autophagy, mitophagy, which is the turnover of mitochondria in the heart. And it also reduces systemic blood pressure. All of these things will help prevent heart attacks and strokes. And there's a lot of studies that show it prevents cancer and this and that. And yet here we have these other studies showing that, apparently it either, the oral supplements are turned into spermine and may not do a damn thing, or taking larger amounts can cause too much autophagy and damage the pancreas and promote type 2 diabetes. So what could you do? What's the best way to handle this? Well, I think the best way to handle this is, because spermidine in lower doses, probably maybe up to 10, 15 milligrams maximum. Older people and healthier people who are older do show higher levels of spermidine in their body. So it's probably best to limit your spermidine intake from food, which means you might want to take some straight wheat germ. Wheat germ is loaded with spermidine. It's by far the number one source. Cheddar cheese, mushrooms, found in a couple of other foods. Depend on natural foods for your spermidine intake, rather than depend on supplements, because again, the supplements, we don't even know what happens. The study that I wrote about in Applied Metabolics showed that spermidine supplements are immediately converted into spermine, which we don't know how much activity spermine has, but they're not. Once you ingest them, they're no longer spermidine. These spermidine supplements. And the other fact is this: if you take too much spermidine, you get this too much excess autophagy, which can cause damage. I think the best way to do it is to rely on natural food sources rather than supplements, which are very expensive, by the way. Also, there's some studies that show that excess spermidine is also associated with promoting strokes. which is still another reason to be wary of spermidine supplements. So that's about it for spermidine. Very good stuff up to a point. I don't really. I have strong doubts about it having real life extension ability, despite what the animal studies show. I mean, the animals such as worms and mice, they've shown life extension from having higher spermidine levels, but I'm not so sure that this happens in humans. However, inducing autophagy to a limited extent probably will cause you to live longer because of the fact that it helps your body get rid of senescent cells. And senescent cells, like I say, these dead cells that accumulate, they secrete these, it's called SASP, senescence-associated phenotype, something like that. These are highly inflammatory chemicals that wreak havoc all over the body. They adversely affect the heart, the brain. They're associated with cancer, and they most of all, they're associated with accelerated aging. So stimulating autophagy is very, very great for health up to a point. Again, you could stimulate autophagy without taking any spermidine supplements, simply by fasting. Now, the bad news is that to get a real autophagy effect from fasting, you're going to have to fast for at least 48 to 72 hours. That's not fun. I'm talking about no food at all. Intermittent fasting, which is by far the most popular form of fasting, doesn't last long enough to induce sufficient autophagy. In other words, you get benefits from intermittent fasting. It does improve your insulin sensitivity. It does a number of beneficial effects, but it will not induce any significant degree of autophagy, because that takes extended fasting, at least 48 hours or more. So if you want to get the benefits of autophagy without taking any supplements, you can do that. Also, another way to induce autophagy that's a little bit easier than all of these things is to induce a chemical called AMPK. AMPK is produced when your body gets low in the glycogen. For example, when the muscles start to use up the glycogen, when you get low in ATP, specifically the elemental energy source ATP, when your body starts to get low in ATP, that's when your body starts to kick out AMPK. There's certain supplements that also stimulate AMPK, such as green tea, berberine. Berberine is especially useful for stimulating AMPK. And exercise. Aerobic exercise is excellent for stimulating AMPK. And AMPK is a very potent inducer of autophagy without having to take any spermidine or nothing like that. All you got to do is work out. And I think also if you be very careful about your intake of carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrate, because refined carbohydrate will block autophagy. So if you tend to eat a little bit less carbohydrate and avoid all refined carbohydrates, you'll also stimulate a greater release of AMPK, which also translates into increased autophagy, which has great health benefits, especially for longevity. So that's about it for this topic. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, ergogenic AIDS, hormone therapy, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't, women's health and fitness, many more topics. Effective fat loss techniques. I cover more topics in my Applied Metabolics than any other digital publication on the internet. It's at www.appliedmetabolics.com. It's 25 to 40 pages each month. No advertisements, just pure evidence-based information that includes my over 60 years of constant study and knowledge, basically. So, subscribe today. When you subscribe, send me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolic Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and anti-aging research. I have a email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage, where current subscribers only could send me short questions about anything they read in Applied Metabolics or anything they're curious about related to nutrition, exercise, or general health, and I will answer their question as a sort of bonus, and also to show my appreciation for their subscription. Obviously, this applies only to current subscribers. So again, it's at www.appliedmetabolics.com. Not expensive at all. Very easy to read. I've been a professional writer for half a century. Geez, that sounds like a long time, doesn't it? And I know how to write for the public. So, also, feel free to subscribe to this channel. It's completely free. I post a new video every Tuesday. Please let others know about the channel. And that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter and adopt a dog. Thank you for listening.